Hey there, I'm Alex, and this is Knowledge Stream, a series where I'm going to talk about video game topics like game design and computer science. In this video, we're going to conceptualize what game design is. There are multiple definitions on what game design is. We will use them and conceptualize our own. Let me tell you that game design is not directly related to video games. Before video games, like Kirby, many other kind of games existed. Games like the Mesoamerican ball game, or chess, or blackjack, which was formerly known as 21. That's right, just in case you didn't know, sports, board games, card games, and well, video games are of interest to game design. Before talking about game design, we must define what a game is. And just like I mentioned before, even game has different definitions. In their book, Rules of Play, Game Design Fundamentals, Katie Salem and Eric Zimmerman define a game as the following. A game is a system in which players engage in an artificial conflict, defined by rules that results in a quantifiable outcome. Okay, this definition is very full, and that's not a bad thing. Yet, this series aimed to simplify many terms as well, don't worry. First, what is a system? A system is a bunch of things that interact with each other to solve a problem. In games, there could be multiple smaller systems, but in general terms, we could say that this system will allow us to solve the artificial conflict. Next, what are players? The players are the living beings participating in the game.
Uther versus Balthazar!
We finally meet.
Why living beings, you may ask? Well, because not just you can play, but your dog or your cat. You know, just be creative. There's also the mention of rules in that definition. In traditional games like board games and sports, rules delimit what a player can or cannot do. But in video games, rules not only apply to players, there are other internal systems that must have rules to work too, like non-player characters or objects in the game. The actions in the game must be regulated.
Follow the rules.
Job's done.
Then we talk about an artificial conflict. A conflict is a clash of interests, and this conflict is artificial because someone invented this conflict.
We finally meet.
I will fight with honor.
And I will fight with huge minions and devastating spells. Good luck.
Oh, no, not pink. Make it blue. Merryweather. Make it pink.
At the end of the definition, they mention a quantifiable outcome. In the simplest terms, players win or lose. There's also the possibility of a draw.
The victory is yours.
Victory tastes so sweet. Like a milkshake. No, maybe more like a bar of chocolate.
And now that we have all these small parts, we can use a game as an example and see if it fits the definition of game. In chess, we could say that the two players are two kingdoms at war. Every player takes turns to move their pieces, and each piece can be moved in a particular way. Those are the rules. To win this war, only one king must survive. Only a player checkmates the other king, and the game is over. There is the outcome. One player wins and the other one loses. But as you can see, there was a draw here. That definition worked perfectly to define chess. For video games, that quantifiable outcome will vary from game to game. In Kirby, we could say that there are layers of outcomes, positive and negative. The negative layers will be losing lives until the point where the player gets a game over. In a similar way, there are positive outcome layers, where the player will be completing the stages until it reaches the ending of the game and see the game's credits. In an educational game like Atoms, the player must prove that knows the symbols of the chemical elements. In this game, the outcome range comes from losing a life and start over, to beating a stage and obtain 1, 2, or 3 stars. And by being an educational game, the result outcome could tell us how much the player has learned about the symbols, or how much effort has put into the game. It is not the same to have completed every level with 1 or 2 stars, than achieve 3 stars in every stage. This is a clever design because the player learns something useful from a video game. Other definitions also mention decision making, and I agree. During a game, players have to make many decisions. But here comes the weird part. For me, there's a key component that is not mentioned in formal definitions. Have you seen this before?
The game is fun. If it's not fun, why bother?
The president of Nintendo of America goes right into it. We play games because games are fun. And we also have to understand fun. Fun is something we enjoy, something that is amusing. When we are having fun, it means we're having an enjoyable activity. When we're having fun, time flies. There's this sensation that time goes fast, because we're entertained. Fun is that missing component. And now, we're moving to the point where someone has to come with how a game is supposed to be. And that person is the game designer. For this, we will need to talk about design. Design is the creation of a plan for the construction of an object or system. And remember, in our case, this system is the game. And the game has many internal subsystems. For example, in chess, there's a decision making on how every piece in the game is supposed to move and what are the conditions for the game to end. So, the game designer's decisions will be the mold to create an experience for the players. Combine all these pieces and we can make a definition of game design. Finally, about time, right? Game design is where a game designer creates a collection of fun activities defined by rules, where players must interact and overcome a conflict with their decision making. This means there's a meta decision making, where a game designer makes decisions on how the game and the players can interact with each other, giving the players a unique experience. Finally, there's a great quote that a great game designer once said. Keep it in mind if you want to create your own games.
On my business card, I am a corporate president. In my mind, I am a game developer. But in my heart, I am a gamer.